This is the one that we noticed live while we were spinning 50 different plates on the air on Sunday as the Saints-Buccaneers game was ending and NBC's Football Night in America was unfolding. Michael Thomas got rolled up on by teammate Alvin Kamara, and the initial indication I got was not encouraging. He was walking around like, oh, I'm fine, and wouldn't let the trainers look at it, and then everything got very quiet. And anytime that happens, that tells you there's a problem.
Right.
And then we hear high ankle sprain, but he's going to try to play through it. And, Chris, we talked about this earlier in the week. High ankle sprain, play through it. That's not the kind of thing you can play through. And now the report, surprisingly not, that Michael Thomas is expected to miss several weeks with this high ankle sprain, because of course he will, because of course that's what happens when you have a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, that's right. And, this is the other factor that plays into this. It's the type of injury, one, that after you do it, you think, okay, man, it hurts, but I think I'll be okay in a few days. And you wake up the next morning and it's 10 times worse. So that's the first thing. You might think the night of the injury, like, I'll be okay in a week. I think I might be able to do this. But then it really sets in. The other thing that sets in, too, and where players might walk around in the locker room after the game and all of that, we've had this conversation. Toradol's still misleading up to like 24 hours after the game because it's a numbing drug. It's a numbing agent. So guys get hurt, and this is why we see more serious injuries than not sometimes, because they don't realize how badly they are hurt until the next day, until the Toradol wears off. So with all that, I bet his ankle is very sore, and he plays a position that, the ankle's kind of important. To be able to stick your foot in the ground, cut off at it, at 100% speed or whatever that may be, jam it in the ground, change directions, do that. Michael Thomas is a big guy, and he is very good at sticking his foot in the ground and being a good route runner. And I would think that's even more of a handicap for him because that's his game, and it's going to be really hard to explode off that and, take that pounding from the body and his ability to drive force in the ground.
Of the limited NFL injuries to which I can relate because I've suffered them, a sprained ankle is one, but it was a low ankle sprain, and it hurt like hell for a couple of days, and then it was fine. And then it's just fine. Like the swelling goes down. It's like, hey, it doesn't hurt anymore. Like I'm preparing myself that this is going to be a source of pain and discomfort and limitation for weeks, but it was a low ankle sprain.
Yeah, it's
high
different.
Ankle sprain, a different one altogether, and we always hear 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll see how long Michael Thomas is out. But it hurts the Saints. This is a guy who had 149 receptions last year, a guy who aspired to have even more this year. He only had 2 week 1. Now he's going to miss several weeks. He has to, along with everything else, come to terms with the fact that he's not getting anywhere close to 149 this year.
Yeah, right.
And I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
He's an intense individual. He is a focused and driven player, and he's a great player. And now, after the first game of the season, you've got to process all of this stuff: anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. That's why it took a few days, I think, for the report to come out that he's going to miss several weeks. I think he doesn't want to accept the fact. And my guess is he's going to do everything in his power to get on the field. This is a perfect year to have the 3-week injured reserve option aimed at maximum roster flexibility, Chris, because the best way to protect Michael Thomas from himself, self-protect him from himself, is to put him on injured reserve.
Yeah, no, you're right. I've never met Michael Thomas. You can see the intensity when he plays football. You could see he loves the sport. You could see that he backs down from no one. And then I think we both heard from people in New Orleans that he is that guy. He works hard as hell. Doesn't matter who's in front of him. I mean, remember Sean Payton making the statements last year about Michael Thomas beating him up in drills when he was coming off the line of scrimmage and all of that stuff. So very intense, and probably the most important piece of the New Orleans Saints offense. I mean, there's just no other way to sugarcoat it. He's won the most important piece because so much of the pass game is around him and what he can do. And then it's like a double whammy to where he's so important to the scheme and Sean Payton and his ability, but he's also extremely important to Drew Brees. I mean, he's Drew Brees' crutch, but so much of what Sean Payton creates with Michael Thomas is the type of throws that Drew Brees is good at and capitalizing at. So now, okay, who's going to be that guy? No one's going to be as talented. And it'll be easier to take away those type of throws, which could also be a ripple effect to go, oh, no, now Breeze might have to make throws that, we question. And it's fair to question. I think after week 1, his arm didn't exactly look like top-notch to me. And that's where I worry about the Saints there. And Sean Payton's going to have to find a kind of a new formula to make this offense go.
There was an intensity in Michael Thomas before their playoff win over the Eagles in January of 2019 that was stunning to me and was inspiring at the same time. He was so fired up for that game, and that's what he brings to the table. And as you're trying to process this, if you're Michael Thomas, I think what you have to do is say, okay, fine. Look, the ultimate goal is still on the table, and that's to finally get back to the Super Bowl. For him, it's get there for the first time. For Sean Payton and Drew Brees, it's get back. I think they're the only ones. Everyone else, it's a first-time experience, but they've been pounding on the door every year, 2017, 2018, 2019, all years Michael Thomas was with the New Orleans Saints. And I think it's a refocus now. Forget about individual accolades. Forget about regular season record. Forget about regular season accomplishment. Get healthy. Get ready to come back and help the team in the postseason. And he may have to help the team get to the postseason based on what happens without him. I'm looking at the depth chart, and we know the depth chart isn't set in stone, in part because teams go out of their way to tell us it's not set in stone, which makes me wonder why the hell they even publish depth charts. That's not going to be one of my grievances that gets aired later. It's just a standing irritation that I have. But Marquez Callaway, undrafted rookie out of Tennessee, is listed as the backup to Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that means he gets more reps. Traquan Smith is behind Emmanuel Sanders. Deontay Harris is listed on the depth chart as well. This is a team that's got 5 receivers on the depth chart.
Thin there.
So they need somebody.
Yeah.
If Michael Thomas isn't able to play, they got to do something. Bump somebody off of the practice squad, sign a free agent. Mohamed Sanu not available. He signed with the 49ers yesterday as expected. Trade for somebody. We'll be talking about that coming up soon. But he's got to do something. Sean Payton does, along with GM Mickey Loomis, to deal with Michael Thomas's absence if he is gone for a few weeks, because I don't know that bumping up Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, or Deontay Harris to the number 1 receiver spot is going to be the answer.
No, it's not. And that's why, that's twofold of why he's so important to the offense, too. You're seeing there. So all the things we mentioned, plus they have nothing. They're a little weak in the wide receiver department. Hey, Emmanuel Sanders is a good player, but he's not a superstar. He's not talented the way he was 4 or 5 years ago to attract attention that way. And, hey, Marquez Callaway, he might get a few more reps, Mike. But just to answer that question, I would be shocked if I saw him in the Michael Thomas role. That role is just it takes a special football player with great experience, great football knowledge, and knowing how to read defenses. Playing that little slot position in the Sean Payton West Coast offense, I would think now you're going to have a little bit more of a by committee approach to take over for the Michael Thomas stuff. Where, yes, an Emmanuel Sanders gets involved in the conversation a little bit because he's been around the block a few times. He'll understand, when the defense does this, Drew expects me to do that, and all of those type of intricacies that are in the offense that I don't know if I would trust with a young guy. And you might see a Traquan Smith and things like that dabble in there, but they're going to have to be creative. He's going to have to extend the Jared Cook part of his playbook. And probably the Alvin Kamara, maybe motion out of the backfield, use him in the passing game more. I would expect those to be kind of the next moves for Sean Payton.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, the idea that Sean Payton will take the various chess pieces he has and move them around in his offense because he values flexibility. Jared Cook can go out to the slot. Alvin Kamara can move around. Remember, they have Ty Montgomery, who was a receiver who became a running back
for
the Green Bay Packers once upon a time. So, and they also have Taysom Hill. So, they've got guys who can pick up the slack in that offense. But Michael Thomas, the straw that stirs the drink, to borrow a phrase from Stephen Jones as it related to Ezekiel Elliott last year before his holdout. Now the injury to Michael Thomas, it's going to be an issue for the Saints. But of all the coaching staffs out there, Sean Payton's is the one that probably can figure out how to deal with it the best and find another way to make that offense hum, even if Michael Thomas is unavailable for several weeks. And I think it would be rash to trade for somebody And if they would trade for somebody, it tells you it's more than just a couple of weeks. See, that's why they don't want to tell us anything about injuries, folks. I know we get irritated. You got a fantasy lineup you got to worry about. You got a team that you're rooting for. You want to know, are the players going to play? You have gambling interests that you may want to pursue. Do I take the points? Do I give the points? Do I take the Saints? Do I go over? Do I go under? And you want to know if guys are going to play. They don't want us to know, because if all of a sudden the Saints are faced with a more extensive absence by Michael Thomas to the point where they're thinking about trading for somebody, they don't want the team they'd be doing the deal with to think they're desperate.
No, that's exactly right.
They want to be able to say, we really don't need him. Michael Thomas is going to be back in a couple of weeks. But,
Right.
If this guy's disgruntled, maybe we'll do it. That's a far different approach to the bargaining table than, oh, man, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. Can we have this guy? Can we get this guy? What do we need to do? What do we need to do? Tell us, tell us, tell us. So that's why they don't want to tell us anything about injuries.
No,
It's one of the many reasons why they don't want to tell us.
You're right. And I don't think, I wouldn't expect the Saints in this situation to quite dabble in the trade market yet. Probably go out, see a game or two of what we got, and see where Michael Thomas is after 2 weeks. If he's going to be back in the third week, all right, 4 weeks. There's no need to panic. But if you go through 2 or 3 games and you go, whoa, man, our offense, we stink. We're struggling. And Michael Thomas, man, he might be back, after 4 weeks, but it's not looking good. He's not going to be 100%. Then they might have to make moves. I don't know. Des Bryant is out there on the street. They did work him out at one time.
He was on the team. He was on the team
a
couple of years ago.
So maybe they revisit that. I got to look at the list of free agent receivers out there that would make sense, but I would think for now they're going to make do with what they got. I know. Go ahead. Say it. I knew you.
There's a guy available in a few weeks.
Yeah.
He's available to be signed now. He's just not available to play until after his team has played its 8th game or 8 weeks of the regular season pass.
They
if
can
he isn't
handle
signed,
him.
and that's Antonio Brown. They brought him in for a workout, a visit last year. Because I think Sean Payton, and this is part of that little devilish in a good way. The good trouble, as John Lewis would say. Sean Payton trying to stir things up to get what needs to be done accomplished as it relates to the NFL and some of the rules and some of the regulations, some of the way things happen.
Sure.
Antonio Brown is kind of back-burnered. They're not making a decision. So, hey, let's bring him in for a visit. Let's maybe push this thing forward. Let's maybe get this thing done. Let's force the NFL's hand. I feel like that's what they were doing last year. And if they see something they like in Antonio Brown, and he could probably do a better job of replacing Michael Thomas's production than anyone they have on the roster,
yes, I'd agree
something
with
to
that.
consider if it's more than just a couple of weeks, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly would be able to fill that role in a lot of ways. He's, again, another guy that's been around the block. He'll understand what's being taught, what's being asked of that position. And, of course, he's a talented football player. I don't think he's going to be the guy we remember him to be, but to your point, yes, I don't know if there's anybody on the roster, even though I haven't seen Antonio Brown play football in a year. I feel pretty safe to say that he's still better than everybody on the wide receivers on the Saints other than Michael Thomas.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.